So when I was a freshman in college, something just amazing happened to me. And I actually have two stories to tell you. The first story is just, I believe it reflects something that any one of you could tell if you had the opportunity to just come up here and tell a story. And maybe you'd have 5 stories like this. And there are things in my life that remind me of this story, but this is what happened to me. So I'm a freshman in college. And I struggled even as I was beginning to tell the story, how much detail do I want you to know? Because what happened to me was very upsetting. It happened to me, and it had to do with a girl. And let's just say this, it ended up, I was in a relationship in the end, and it ended, that's all. But I was very, 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 very upset. It didn't end like most relationships end. I was very upset, and we were home on break, and I come back to my house, and no one's there. My parents are away. And you talk about needing a hug. Oh, did I need a hug? So I had a best friend. He was in college in Chicago. So I decided, I tried my parent, I was going to call my friend, and he would comfort me. I needed comfort. You have to remember, I grew up before the Columbia bust. You understand life changes after 68. My brother is post-68. I am pre-68. I grew up with the Donna Reed world. I really believe that Robert Young knew best. I did like Ozzie and Harriet. And I was really... I'm struggling to find the right word. I was just, in some ways, simple. But I need my friend. And I'm going to call him. And of course, I know his number. He's my best friend. He has a room in a dorm where he's going to school in Chicago. And I go to the phone and I dial his number. And I'm holding the receiver. And somebody answers, and I said, "Hi, is Chris there?" And the person on the phone said, "Wait a minute." And I hear blah, 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 blah. And then Chris comes on the phone. And I say, "Chris, it's Mark." And Chris says to me, "How did you find me?" I said, "I called your room." He said, "I'm not in my room." I said, "Where are you?" He said, "I'm at a party in a place I've never been before. I don't like it here. I'm never going to come again." "How did you find me?" And Chris and I realized I've dialed the wrong number, and the wrong number I dialed is where Chris is, has never been, will never be again. And I say to the person who answers the phone, "Is Chris there?" And they say, "Wait." And Chris comes on the phone and says, "Hello." And "How did you find me?" "I called your room. It's not my room." By the way, it is the same exchange. There are all kinds of explanations. Okay, I dialed the wrong number, but I dialed a number inside the college. But he had to be in this room that I dialed the wrong number. By the way, I survived. But that moment was a whoa moment. Now, hold that story a minute. a second story. Had nothing to do with me. An Israeli mother named Dalia. Dalia has a son. The son's name is Deevray. And Deevray fights in the 2008 Gaza campaign. A lovely 20-something-year-old. And Deevray is the first Israeli to die in the 2008 Gaza war. And his parents are devastated. And Dalia misses him so much. You know, we began the high holidays talking about what loneliness is. There's a difference between missing and loneliness. Though if you lose someone, it's more than miss. You feel lonely when you lose a beloved and when you lose a child. We had a family this year who lost a child. How do you lose a child? And then go on. And you do because, first of all, you may have another child or children, and you go on for them. And you go on because that's just what life is. But you're never the same. Life is never, ever, ever the same. And she prayed to God. Dalia prayed to God. I need a hug from Deevray. Honest to goodness. She says, I need somehow a hug from Deevray. I miss him so much. Shortly thereafter, her daughter, she also has a daughter, says to Dalia, I have tickets to a concert. I want you to go with me to the concert. Dalia didn't want to go. But it's her daughter. And they're having a tough time. Dalia goes to a concert she did not want to go to. She's sitting about 3/4 of the way up. And she suddenly feels a tap on her shoulder. And she turns around, and there is a 2-year-old child looking up at her, named Eshel. And she says to Eshel, what's your name? He says, Eshel. And Dalia happens to be a preschool teacher, very good with kids. Dalia says to Eshel, would you like to be my friend? And Eshel says, yes. And there's a seat next to Dalia. Eshel plops himself down. And they start talking. The parents are about 3 rows in front, and they look, and they see Eshel's now with Dalia, and they say, in essence, is he bothering you? And Dalia says, no, there's no problem. He can stay. And they're talking. The concert has not yet begun. They're talking. And at one point, Eshel says to Dalia, I have a new brother. Really? What's his name? Deevray. Dalia's taken by surprise. Yes, he's with my mommy, Ima. Dalia jumps up and goes first down 3 rows, and there is a baby carriage right in front of the seat and a little baby. And she says to the mother, what a beautiful baby, what's your baby's name? And she said, Deevray. And the mother, Dalia says to the mother, how do you happen to have named him Deevray? And the mother says, the mother and father are both there. The mother says, you know, this was a very hard pregnancy. We didn't know if I would carry the child and give birth to this child. And then we were watching the news, and we heard that the first Israeli to die in the Gaza war was named Deevray. And my husband and I decided, if this child is born, we would name our child after Deevray. And that's why this child is named Deevray. Dalia cannot speak. And finally she says, I'm Deevray's mother. And the mother is stunned. And she says, Ken Bemet. Ani ima shel Devir. And in an instant, the mother picks up the baby, hands the baby to Dalia, and says, Devir needs to give you a hug. All of you who have been around and heard me speak, you know I'm not into the idea that God is pulling strings and makes things happen. If this is a miracle, it's a miracle of connection. I believe in miracles of connection between good people in inexplicable ways. There was a connection. Ultimately, I dialed the wrong number and Chris was there. Dalia comes to a random performance and meets the mother who has named her newborn son after the Devir whom she is now mourning. Nobody pulled strings to make that happen. That's not how life works, but this is how life works. We are either open to this happening or we're not. And if we're opening to this happening, it happens all the time. Rarely. But it happens. And there's something powerful about it. Even, again, I use this term in quotations, but mystical. It is inexplicable, but it happens. Humans connect in extraordinary ways. They give each other hugs in enormous ways. And there's nothing could be a better story for us this year on Kol Nidre Eve than Dalia and Deevray's story. Because Kol Nidre Eve is all about the transcending hug. The hug that transcends time and place and space and in some way even logic. And when I look at this picture here, that is again just the symbolic quintessential hug. It is the hug of Yom Kippur, of Kol Nidre Eve. That is an eternal hug. In my mind, they never let go of each other. They wrap themselves around, the whole point of this particular picture is it can be anybody. It is everybody. It's of any age. It's of any two sexes. It doesn't matter. It's the embrace of eternity. And that's what Kol Nidre is about. It's the eternal hug is tonight. That's why we're all here. The eternal hug. And it is not only a hug that comes out of, the Dalia Devir story. This is a hug that transcends generations. It transcends generations. I have no idea who's hugging. I only know this. It could be a grandchild with a grandparent. It could be two brothers, two sisters, two friends, a husband and wife. It transcends time and place because it's all about human connection. It's what the Jewish tradition teaches us all the time. It's all about people and giving them hugs, warm embrace, kind words, wonderful deeds that tell people we love you're not alone. We will vanquish your loneliness. You're never alone. And you're important. And you're of value. And there is no such thing as a loser. That is a cultural concoction. Every one of us struggles, just more or less at any given moment. But we're all in this together. We try to be there's a room of lovely people. We all do the best we can, and sometimes it doesn't work out well. But there's no loser in this room. Nobody's lost in this room because they're always receiving from us a hug. And that's why Kol Nidre is also about memory. Tonight we are to remember every hug we've ever received, especially from people who are no longer with us, who no longer walk this earth. We will remember tonight the warmth of their embrace, their smile, their gesture. It's also why Yom Kippur, their Yizkor services occur on more than Yom Kippur, but the Yizkor service of Yom Kippur is paramount. It's about remembering those closest to us who we miss so much, who vanquished our loneliness for years and years and years, and then we've lost them. And a question is asked, how long is one a child? And sometimes you'll hear the answer, you're a child until you lose your parents. You're a child until you lose your parents. And I heard a very wise answer to that. Said the following: it's not about losing your parents. As long as a child lives, their parent is their parent, even if they no longer walk this earth. As long as we remember our mother, our father, and remember them for good, and remember the moments where we were so happy together, that parent never dies, and we remain the child. One is a child until one dies oneself. Only then is the parent no longer the parent. And the Jewish tradition goes further. A wonderful, wonderful, sweet midrash. It's not just about parents. Again, it's multi-generational. Tonight we remember grandparents. And every one of us has different grandparent stories because every one of us had different experiences for how long they lived with us or where they were. And one of the most tragic pieces of the survivor's existence is very often they lost parents and grandparents. But any of us who either are fortunate enough to have grandparents still alive or who had grandparents who touched our soul, tonight we remember them. We remember their embrace. And there's this lovely midrash that says this follows, a very interesting play. The question is asked, why are we called, we, the Jewish people, the children of Israel? And you remember who Israel was? Israel was Jacob. Why are we the children of Jacob? Why is our communal name the children of Jacob? We would not have been surprised if we were the children of Abraham. Maybe the children of Isaac. That makes less sense. But certainly we could be the children of Abraham. Why are we the children of Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel? And why did Jacob merit his name being changed to Israel, which becomes our communal family name? What did Jacob do to merit being called Israel? And now we are the children of Israel, of Jacob. There's a midrash, because we know in the text there's an answer. He struggles with the angel and he asks for a blessing. The angel changes his name. Done. In the midrash, it doesn't matter what the text says. The midrash asks its own question. It will give its own answer. Why was Jacob merited the change of name to Israel, which then means that we are the children of Jacob? And here's the answer the midrash gives us. Jacob was the first of all of our family to have a relationship with his grandchildren. In the text, there's no relationship between parent and grandchild till Jacob. Jacob had a loving relationship with Ephraim and Manasseh, his two grandchildren. He taught them Torah. And if you remember that fabulous passage at the end of the story of Jacob's life, he wants to bless his children. But he begins by blessing his two grandchildren. And he brings them to him. Joseph brings the grandchildren in. And Jacob, in essence, hugs them. And in that hug is the blessing, which many parents now give their children in Jewish homes on Shabbat every week. It's a hug. And the Jewish tradition says the reason why Jacob merited the name Israel was because he had a relationship with his grandchildren. Because it's multidimensional. It transcends generations. It's not simply with one's parent, but one's grandparent. And it's more than even a grandparent. And if you have memories of your grandparents, by the way, you know each one of your own sets of memories is so distinctively unique. What we remember about a grandparent. You know, I was really lucky. We had two grandmothers, very active in our lives. How they hugged us, night and day different. And one hugged us with food. Pudding. And when your grandmother gave you to eat, she put you at the table, she put the cake in front of you, she gave you a knife, she filled up a glass of milk, and she said, yes, and eat. And then you're done, she'd stand right there to push the next piece. This was her love. And the eyes were so happy and so loving. And I understood. I had another grandmother, purely intellectual. These people, most of you knew both of my grandmothers. Very intellectual. And her job was to open up experiences for me. And I say this, I love it. Rock climb. I'm a child, 4 years old, climbing rocks in Central Park. And she made it sound like I was scaling Everest. And scavenger hunts. And it was a different way of loving. And I am sure if any one of you were telling your story and you have grandparent memories, there are different memories that mean for you, she was hugging me all the time. Hugging me all the time. There it is. That's the eternal hug. That's the hug between me and my grandmother, mothers, fathers. It's our hug. And again, it's not just parents and grandparents. The beautiful understanding of the Jewish tradition is you hug everyone. Nieces, nephews, cousins, aunts, people married to aunts and uncles, and friends of all ages, of all generations. That's the eternal hug. It transcends all lines. It transcends all lines and all ages and all places and all generations. And tonight we're to feel that hug. Every hug that has made us who we are. And it reminds us, by the way, we've got to keep hugging, because the memories we have, they have to become memories for those who come after us. That's also the Jewish insight. We're in a long, wondrous chain, and we're just a piece, and we do the best we can for as long as we can. I hope everyone here has a long, long, long life. But life always has an end, and then there will be those who come after us. And they have to remember our hugs of them. And on their Kol Nidre, years and years and years and years from now, they'll remember us and our own shtick. How we hugged, how we related. But it's very important that Kol Nidre also says to us, don't stop the chain. The chain is at its essence about people. In Jewish poetry, it's about Torah. That ultimately the Torah embraces us and we embrace Torah, and we want Torah to continue. Generation after generation after generation. Kol Nidre is all about Torah too. But Torah is about how do you create a world in which you do not harm another person in any way that you don't want to be harmed yourself. How do you make this a lovelier, sweeter, gentler world for people you love? And how do you always comfort and vanquish loneliness every time loneliness rears its head? That's what this Jewish tradition is all about. That's what Kol Nidre is about. A reminder that we have to create the memories going forward so that when our children and grandchildren and our grandnieces and our grandnephews and our third cousins, they look at that picture, they see us hugging them. Hugging them. That's what we ultimately have to see in that picture. Not being hugged. We're the hug. We've talked about, you can't tell who the hugger and the huggy is. And as somebody said, the lovely thing about a hug, as hard as you give it, you get it back. But we have to be in that hug. And the challenge of life is to find ways to hug better, more, often, stronger, in warmth of embrace, in a kind word. Words can be so hugging. And in every kind action possible, that we help people we love move their mountains. Hugs vanquish loneliness and move mountains. And so in one moment we do the threefold chant. This year, that first chant, a chant of regret for every opportunity we had to hug, either with a physical embrace or a kind word or a deed of help, and we missed the opportunity. We regret it. And then resolve, stronger. We resolve that in this year, we will be open to those moments where hugs come to us from people who really care about us, and we will respond to them. We will hug them back. We will not miss an opportunity to hug going forward. And then the third chant, it's a promise that we're in that picture forever. That we will create memories of our hugs for all those who are yet to come. And that one day they too will understand this extraordinary link of embrace that represents Torah, the Jewish people, and who we as human beings were able to give to those we love. And we all say, Amen.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS, the Jewish Broadcasting Service, with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the JBS homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to JEM, to Jim, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.